This is Cashing Out on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
It's hour number 2 of Cashing Out right here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. And how about this to be able to start out the hour? A little bit of NBA talk as we go to the progressive guest line. Iggy Gilbert, he does a tremendous job over at Fantasy Alarm. He's joining me right now to break it all down. And Iggy, great to get you aboard, my friend. Thank you so much.
Hey, Greg, thanks for having me, guys. Exciting night in the NBA, and we have another exciting day tomorrow.
Absolutely, and we appreciate the fact that Iggy did indeed get the email on the gray suit if you're watching on VSiN.com, YouTube TV, so an A-plus job there. And first things first, before we turn it forward to Sunday, just what did you make out of the end of that Clippers versus Nuggets game? Because I know you're a little bit of a Nuggets fan, and you were talking about this a little bit off air. You were having some flashbacks as to what happened in that Minnesota Timberwolves series from a season ago, but this time they found a way to be able to get the job done and managed to escape off what would have been a pretty big fourth quarter collapse.
Yeah, I was definitely having some flashbacks there. I was pacing the house, looking to see where's the offense, why are we just settling for threes? But of course, the starters have played almost all that fourth quarter. And then, they pull it out. A win is a win. Doesn't matter if you win by 1 or 30-something points, as was the case with the Clippers in the previous game. 2-2 headed back to Ball Arena. You got to feel great about that, but I was definitely sweating it out. That would have pretty much ended the series, I believe. So great effort by Jokic to come through and be the MVP that he is.
Absolutely. And how do you take a look at things going back to Denver as well? Because I did feel like the Nuggets really needed to get one of those games out there in Los Angeles after they came up short in game number 2. And I thought that was just a massive win for them and really just their confidence in general, too.
Yeah, I've seen Denver bounce back pretty well from games this season after a loss. So I was expecting that. I wasn't expecting it to be a 22-point collapse at the end. I don't know. I'm not super confident. I think every one of these games you could say the Denver should have won 3 of these games. You could say the Clippers should have won all 4 of these games. But Ball Arena, coming back, they don't have the 2-game split. So it's, afternoon game, go to Denver, rest up, and then get the game again in the evening. So I think it might benefit Denver just a little bit. The Clippers have some players that, didn't. Kawhi specifically, he didn't play the full season. So at some point, his legs are going to start giving out in the playoffs. They may not be this round, but that's my hope at least.
Yeah, and I mean, I've mentioned this as well. The fact that with Kawhi Leonard, you just can't even bank on him being healthy as well. Last time we saw him playing well in the playoffs, he gets a serious injury, and he's out for like a year. So you just never know what's going to be happening there. So I'm in wholehearted agreement with you there. And in terms of the games that we are going to be seeing on Sunday, we've got ourselves a relatively good slate. It's going to be getting started early, and it's going to be lasting late. And I do want to get your thoughts on this game first things first, because I'm a man that I'm from the great state of Wisconsin. Bucks were able to claw their way back. They got the win in game number 3, but now in game number 4, they face off against the Pacers team that really did lay it on them in the first 2 games. Good news is Dame Lillard is back for the Milwaukee Bucks, but how do you take a look at game number 4, where even though the Bucks were able to pull it out in game number 3, I just still don't feel very good about them in this series in general?
Yeah, you got 2 championship head coaches and Rick Carlisle and Doc Rivers going at it. So expect adjustments. You saw Doc make those halftime adjustments and basically said, all right, Giannis, we need you and Gary Trent Jr. to go out there and do y'all's things. I don't know if they're going to get 9 points from Trent Jr. again this game. So somebody else is going to have to step up in that void. But as far as, the series, I don't see how Indiana could lose that series. I think it's theirs to win. I don't know if they're going to go up 3-1 tonight. But that's my expectation with it, even though they are underdogs.
Yeah, it is a case where the Pacers are a plus 4.5 underdog at this point, and personally, if I had to play it right now, because I like to be able to bet in-game a little bit more with regards to the NBA playoffs, because you sort of play the, shall we say, momentum shifts. You get a lot of runs out there. You're able to typically find a better number, so that's the way that I like to play it. But if I had to play it right now, I would be looking at those points. And I know that a man that you're taking a look at in terms of a few player props, in terms of just the slate in general that we've got for Sunday, that'd be Karl Anthony Towns. And right now, with the New York Knicks, after they were able to get the job done in game number 3, they're currently about 1.5 point underdogs here against the Detroit Pistons. That total is hovering right around 217.5. Take me through this Knicks versus Pistons game and just what you're expecting from Karl Anthony Towns in this one.
Yeah, and just real quick, I do like Indiana in the first quarter. They haven't trailed going into the second quarter this whole series. That's at plus 120. And then, yeah, this series between the Pistons and the Knicks, it's living up to what it's supposed to be, a tough Eastern Conference defensive battle. I think that series kind of goes as Karl Anthony Towns goes. When for some reason Tom Thibodeau quit giving him the ball, they lost that game, and then they were able to return in game three. Towns played 41 minutes. He had 31 points, 8 rebounds, 4 3-point field goals. They're just putting Tobias Harris on him, sometimes Jalen Duren, and that's just not enough meat. They're really missing Isaiah Stewart. So I don't know. We'll have to monitor that health progress going forward, but it'd be kind of ridiculous of New York not to keep feeding Karl Anthony Towns the ball. He has to be the difference maker in this game if they wish to make it to the second round. And his point line is only set at 22.5. So I looked at it for a teased up option of 25 plus. That's at plus 120 on a couple sports books. So like I said, he scored 31 in the most previous game. I don't see what they're going to make any kind of defense adjustments to stop a three-level scoring center. So I like Cat to score a lot this game, and I think it's going to come down to how the Pistons play in the fourth quarter, as just about every game in the series has. Can that young and inexperienced team find a way to get a playoff home victory, which would be really crucial for them?
Yep, I do agree with you, and I do think that for Karl Anthony Towns, he should be able to have himself a nice game in this one, and I do think that the Knicks have the goods to be able to win this series as well. As we've got Iggy Gilbert, he does a tremendous job breaking down this great game of basketball. He's joining me on Cashing Out on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network, and just a friendly reminder, Kentucky Derby, that's going to be coming your way within the next few days as well, and we've got plenty of guys from the great state of Kentucky that are playing right now in the NBA playoffs, and you want to head on over to First Bet, where you're able to wager on everything over at Churchill Downs, Belmont Park, and treks all around the world. Go to firstbet.com. That's the number one stbet.com. Utilize the promo code of VSiN200. That gives you a $200 sign-up bonus. That's over at firstbet.com. And how about if we do take a look at a game that's going to be sort of in the middle of what we're going to be getting on this NBA Sunday? That'd be the Lakers and the Timberwolves. And in my opinion, this really is the series to watch out for, because with the Timberwolves, they're up 2-1. We saw what they were able to do in game number 3 after Lakers. They were able to seal a little bit of momentum back in game number 2. But that said, right now with the Lakers, they do find themselves as 2.5-point underdogs. Total on this game, you're finding it at a 208. How do you gauge this game between the Timberwolves and the Lakers? A Timberwolves team that, I'll say it looked like Anthony Edwards towards the back half of game number 3, even with Luka Doncic and LeBron James on the other side. He just looked like the best player out there in the court in game number 3.
Yeah, it hasn't necessarily translated to scoring, but I predicted him to be the leading scorer of the series. Now, Luka Doncic is allowed to kind of play with the freedom that he was allowed to play with in Dallas. We saw that in game 2. He basically slowed the game down one-on-one, got to his spot, regardless of who his opponent was, and took advantage of him. But Anthony Edwards is, in my opinion, the best player in this match. And I found a correlation, Greg, and it revolves around his assists. Whenever he had 0 assists in the game they got blown out in game 2, but he had 8 assists in game 1, and they won that game, significantly by a large portion. Game 3, he comes around and gets 9 more assists. They pulled away late in the fourth quarter of that game. When Anthony Edwards is getting double teamed, he needs to find somebody. And since this game's at this Target Center, I feel like, we're going to see somebody else have another outstanding game. Might be Naz Reid, could be Rudy Gobert, could be Mike Conley, could be Julius Randle, but somebody different is going to have to step it up, help Anthony Edwards in this situation. And I don't know. The Lakers know what's at stake, but they've also only won, I believe, 19 games. I had it pulled up right here. Yeah, they've only won 19 games on the road this year, Greg. So I think it's going to be another potential 3-1 start for Anthony Edwards and the Minnesota Timberwolves. And once again, over 5.5 assists. That started at plus 120. You might find that on some of the sports books out there. I saw it at plus 100. Still even odds, and he's had 8 and 9 whenever he has a recorded assist in this game. And I think that's what they're going to have to do to win this match. So I like Anthony Edwards over 5.5 assists for this match.
I think that that's a solid look, as Edwards, to your point, he's been able to do a little bit of everything to get his guys involved. And I do want to ask you about this as well, because we are coming off the heels of the Golden State Warriors getting the win and cover here tonight against the Houston Rockets as well. How much do you take a look at the old narrative of you have to lose in order to be able to win in the NBA playoffs? Because this is a Lakers team that obviously very veteran, very laden with talent in general, but as we know, this is the first time that these guys have been able to match up or have been able to be on the same roster. We just saw them come together in the last few months, and this is their first time going through this rodeo. Obviously, with the Houston Rockets, just a lot of young talent in general on that roster. How much do you take a look at more of these teams, like a Minnesota Timberwolves team that made a deep run last season, like the Golden State Warriors, who we know that they've been there, done that in terms of making runs to the title this time of year, as opposed to some of these teams that maybe it is their first or second go around in the playoffs?
I feel like, that is a generalization that is somewhat true in the NBA. There's levels to this. You have to lose to win. Personally watched it with the Nuggets, lose 2020 to the Lakers in the Western Conference Finals, and come around and make it to the finals, and then kind of sustains their success. And here we are now. You could look at Michael Jordan in the late 80s, 90s, losing to the Pistons, coming around and starting to win those NBA finals. The San Antonio Spurs, kind of the only team that comes to my mind that didn't have that, but then they never won consecutive titles either. So you could say that they were always kind of like bouncing through their chemistry with Popovich and so forth. With the Lakers, Luka Doncic coming over right before the trade deadline, still not being 100%. I think it's a little different than whenever you get somebody for the entire season to develop that chemistry, such as Karl Anthony Towns and Jalen Brunson. Not that I think that they might win it all. I just think that they're in a better rhythm, so to speak, than maybe Luka Doncic is with some of his other teammates, besides like Dorian Finney-Smith, who he's already played with. And of course, LeBron, who has just played so much basketball, and his IQ so high that he can kind of play with anybody. So they're going to have to learn fast, and they took a hard draw. The Western Conference, in my opinion, almost 1-8 until Memphis kind of traded their coach. I felt like, let's just say 1-7 has a chance to win it all. Golden State just took the lead, 4-5's in a battle. We don't know where 3-6 is going to go. So, yeah, it's still anybody's game, but they're going to have to figure it out pretty quick. But Luka Doncic, JJ Redick, LeBron James, that's a pretty high-level IQ, backcourt room, if you will. So I think they have the capability to do it. The Lakers always get a favorable whistle at home as well. So if they can somehow get this win, get back to L.A., they can be looking at a very favorable situation, Greg.
Absolutely. And what's always favorable on our show is getting on great guests. And Iggy, you certainly did that and then some. Do appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Hey, guys, take care, and let's go Nuggets.
Absolutely. And coming up next, how about if we go from the hardwood to the diamond right here on Cashing Out on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Out here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
And we're back here on Cashing Out on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. It was great to be able to get Iggy Gilbert aboard, who does such an amazing job taking a look at this great game of basketball. And I was mentioning this a little bit before as well. You wanted to watch out to see if there would be a position player thrown out there by the Miami Marlins Saturday night. Javier Senjoa did indeed go out there for the Miami Marlins. He did indeed pitch 2 innings and gave up 3 runs. So if you took the advice there and you took like a live over, you took like a live run line on the Seattle Mariners there, you are welcome. And that's something that you do want to be gauging when it comes to Major League Baseball. If you're looking to live bet baseball, some of the best angles that you get are on these just complete lambasting and blowouts where a team is down 12 runs and they have to throw out there a position player. I mean, that is always some good, clean family fun right there where you see, I'm not sure what Mr. St. Joe was pitching. I'm sure that it was less than 60 miles per hour. He's probably like, oh boy, call up my mom and dad. I get to pitch for the first time since I was in Little League. And I actually was a pitcher in Little League as well. Never walked a batter, by the way. I never walked anyone because I threw about 35 miles per hour. I was all about accuracy, not about speed. So, built for comfort, not for speed. Greg Peterson has you covered here tonight. And how about if we do get you guys all covered with regards to what we've got on the baseball card for this Sunday? I don't think that we're going to see a position player pitch in terms of the Seattle Mariners game here on Sunday, but how about if we do take a look at it, because we've actually got a little bit of a pitching change as going down here for the Seattle Mariners. This is 977, 978 on the card. It is going to indeed be Max Meyer who's going to be getting the start for the Marlins, but that said, for the Seattle Mariners, it was looking like it was going to be Bryce Miller, and I felt pretty good about Mr. Bryce Miller, but that said, now it looks like they're going to be having a little bit of a change as it is going to be the debut of one Mr. Evans. Logan Evans going for the Seattle Mariners. Right now, they're around minus 145 or so, and some books have yet to relist this number because when this was taken off the board for the Seattle Mariners, they were more around about minus 160 or so in terms of being a money line favorite. And I do think that this is a very interesting spot because when you take a look at Logan Evans, he was a former mid-round pick who came out of Pittsburgh and has been able to work his way up in terms of the minor league ranks. Last season, he actually pitched in AA Arkansas. And you'll notice this. I noticed this with the Seattle Mariners and a lot of these young guns. They typically aren't going to promote them up to the AAA level. The reason why they're not going to promote them up to the AAA level is because their AAA affiliate is out there in Tacoma. That is a part of the Pacific Coast League. And for those that know the Pacific Coast League, you've gotten a little bit of taste of it this year with the Sacramento A's because they're playing those games in Sacramento. Air is very thin. It just kills all the momentum that you've got as a pitcher. So you've got Mr. Evans, who's been posting up a 4.21 ERA in the PCL in 5 starts this year. That's actually really good. You typically don't think, the 4 ERA out there in the AAA level or something like that. This guy's getting destroyed. No, that's actually really good out there in the PCL because when you have to go to lovely Las Vegas with the Aviators, Reno, Albuquerque is at a lot of elevation as well. You got the teams out there in the great state of California. These are some juice ball leagues. These are some places of high elevation. In the summertime, it gets up to 100 degrees. So Mr. Evans, pretty solid there. Meanwhile, you've got a guy in Max Meyer that actually has been dealing. So, that's something that you do want to take note of because this guy is right now generating north of 12 strikeouts per 9 innings. I've absolutely loved what I've seen out of him. I did have to make a pretty sizable adjustment with regards to the Mariners here because I was thinking that we were going to be able to get Bryce Miller. And Bryce Miller, for those of you guys that know, he has been really, really good when he has been at home for his career. About a 2.73 ERA. On the road, his ERA goes up to about a 4.55. So I did have to make quite a bit of a sizable adjustment, but if we're still able to get a minus 170 or less, which we should be able to on the Seattle Mariners, I would be willing to take a shot on them on the money line. Now, I personally do think that in terms of this total, you have a total to where if you can get a 7 or less, I'd be in on the over. A 7.5 or higher, I'd be in on the under. Right now, I'm seeing a mix of 7 to 7.5. A lot of the places that they left this up initially, they're still at a 7. Some of these places have moved to a 7.5, but that said, with the Miami Marlins, it's just a station-to-station team, I think is the best way of describing it. You've got someone like Xavier Edwards who does a nice job of being able to move the line. They picked up Kyle Stowers in that trade with the Baltimore Orioles last year where they gave up on Trevor Rogers, which I just have no idea why the Baltimore Orioles traded for Trevor Rogers last year, but they traded for Trevor Rogers last year. And Connor Norby, guys like that coming out over to the Miami Marlins, that's going to help restart this franchise. But that said, other than Matt Mervis, you really don't have a lot of power with this team. And for the Seattle Mariners, again, I will mention this. The ballpark out there in Seattle, it suppresses offense in terms of the ballpark factor more than Coors Field elevates offense for the Colorado Rockies. So I do think that that's very much something that you do need to take note of. But that said, for the Seattle Mariners, hasn't affected them here on this Saturday night as they put up 14 runs against the Miami Marlins. That's mainly because our good friend Connor Gillespie was not so great. But Jorge Polanco, after a really bad year last year for the Seattle Mariners, he's up to 7 bombs. He's giving you north of a 350 on base. Big dumper Cal Raleigh has been able to give you some plus homers thus far this season. You were able to get Julio Rodriguez going. He went deep, and that's big because he has been really struggling this year, hitting below the mid-dose line of 200. You need a little bit more of Randy Arozarena, Luke Raley. These guys are starting to pick it up as well. And for the Miami Marlins, they did have to use up quite a few of their bullpen pieces on Saturday because Connor Gillespie lasted a whopping 2 innings. You've got Anthony Bender is going to be available in the bullpen, and I know that they had to throw Lake Bakar, but he only went 9 pitches on Saturday, but that's a pretty spent bullpen. Meanwhile, for the Seattle Mariners, you didn't have to throw out there really too many of your trustworthy guys whatsoever. Someone like a Taylor Cicado has really struggled this year. He came into the game, so that means that your likes of a Trent Thornton, Colin Sider, Andres Munoz, these guys are all going to be available for the Seattle Mariners. So even though it is the debut of one Mr. Logan Evans, I do think that he's going to be able to get the job done. And for Max Meyer, even though the strikeout stuff has been really good for him first few starts of the season, if you look at his career numbers, he's been giving up about 1.5 home runs per 9 innings. Do have a little bit of trepidation there. So if we can get in, personally, if you're looking between a 7 to a 7.5, I would rather have a 7.5 under rather than a 7 over. I think things are going to normalize a little bit more in this game after 2 pretty harebrained games in terms of these totals to begin the series. And I do think that for the Seattle Mariners, they're probably going to be able to offer a lot of value with regards to the money line. And I would think that that run line should be north of plus 125. As I'm looking, the books that have relisted this, they're having this more roundabout plus 140, plus 145. We'll be willing to take a shot on that run line to go along with this total under as well. So a little bit of moving parts there, and I'll let you know if we do see other books relist this, list different openers, because that was a little bit of pitching change that we did see here in the nighttime, but certainly have some fun there. And what we do want to inform you guys of is the betting splits here on VSiN, because we are able to take a look at both the Circa betting splits along with your DraftKings splits, and this really gives you the widest range of the market, because with DraftKings, they're taking a lot of public money. They're able to just have a little bit more of the voice of the public in general, and then Circa, they're taking big bets from professional bettors, so you know exactly what's moving the market. You're able to get insights with regards to real action, not just the public money, but the wagers that they do indeed move lines, see the percentage of bets versus the handle on every single game across every major sport, helping you make smarter, more informed bets. You're able to get in on the VSiN summer special right now, where you're able to get everything that we do here at the network for a low price of $59 all the way through August 1st. That's over at vsin.com/subscribe. That is vsin.com/subscribe. As it is cashing out with myself, Greg Peterson, right here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. And how about if we do dive in on another interesting game that we've got on this Sunday, as we've got ourselves the Tampa Bay Rays on the road against the San Diego Padres. This is at the bottom of the board, 979, 980, and it's Mr. Randy Vasquez who gets the start for the Padres, and Zach Little hopes to come up big for the Tampa Bay Rays. Right now, this total is 8, and with the Padres, they're between minus 115 and minus 120 favorites. Big reason why you're seeing this total, or this money line of the Padres, be much cheaper than you normally would is the injuries that the Padres lineup is going through, as you've got Jackson Merrill currently on the injured list. Luis Arias went out in Sunday Night Baseball, very unfortunately, as well. So that's been a little bit of an issue for this team. That said, even with the San Diego Padres being banged up, you saw Fernando Tatis Jr. has been amazing this year. He's been able to supply the team with 8 home runs. He's given you north of a 4 base. Manny Machado's not necessarily hit for a lot of power, but he's been able to do a nice job, being able to move the line, get on base. And then Jose Iglesias is one of the guys that's now seeing a few more at-bats. He's been pretty solid. We all know about his OMG days with the New York Mets last season. And for the Tampa Bay Rays, the offense has been very sneakily actually one of the better surprises this season, because the Tampa Bay Rays were terrible with their offense last year. They were a bottom 5 team in the big leagues in terms of runs per game. You knew that the shift to Steinbrenner Field as opposed to the Trop was going to be able to help things out a little bit, but it's translated to road production as well. This is a Tampa Bay Rays team that is more of a league average team in terms of their overall run production, albeit they do score more like 3.6 runs per game away from home, closer to 4.5 runs per game at home. So that's something that you do want to be mindful of. But Jonathan Randa has been hitting north of 300. He's been able to give you 4 bombs. Junior Caminero, he's coming into his own. He's been able to give you 5 home runs. Brandon Lau has been neither here nor there, but he had himself a nice day on Saturday. And then you've got these guys like a Jake Magnum, Cameron Misner, who have been able to hit above a 300. So that's been a nice find. And Christopher Morel, who couldn't get on base to save his life last year, he's been able to give you north of 300 on base. As we know with the Tampa Bay Rays, they always do a nice job of mixing and matching in the bullpen. The likes of Mason Montgomery, Hunter Biggie, Pete Fairbanks, all these guys are going to do a rock-solid job. Garrett Clevenger as well. But it's actually the San Diego Padres that have the number 1 bullpen ERA in the big leagues. They've got a lot of guys that are able to hold it down for multiple innings. You didn't use up Adrian Morejon yesterday, so he's going to be available for this game. I like what you've been able to get out of Robert Suarez, guys like this. So I do think that for the Padres, they do find a way to get the job done, get to a guy in Little who's given up 8 home runs in his first 5 starts of the season. So I do like this little over, and I do like the Padres on the money line. And coming up next, what I love is talking hockey with Jonathan Davis. So we'll do that next on Cashing Out on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Welcome back to Cashing Out here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
I riddle you this right here on Cashing Out on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. It's Greg Oops Peterson holding it down tonight. How can you still be powerful while being powerless? Well, we have the answer as we go out to the Progressive Guest Line. That's where we find Jonathan Davis. Somehow, someway, this man has been operating without power for about 14 hours, and yet he's still doing all of the tremendous work here at VSiN, because he does all of our written work here at VSiN for the NHL side of things. He does a great job with his daily breakdowns, and he's joining me through the magic of technology via the Progressive Guest Line. And Jonathan, we do appreciate you being powerful even while you're powerless. Thank you so much.
Well, I got the strength of 10 men is what I've been told.
Yes.
So that's how I'm able to pull this off, Greg.
Absolutely, and I think that you're underselling it. I think it's more like 15 men, but that's just me personally. But first things first, in terms of what we've seen here in the NHL playoffs, just what did you gauge of the action on Saturday? Because I think that it's just very striking in terms of what we saw in the late game, the fact that the Colorado Avalanche are just completely picking apart the Dallas Stars, and recognize that the Stars are currently very much shorthanded and they are dealing with a bunch of injuries. But that said, I've been very impressed by the Avalanche here in the first few games of the series.
Well, Greg, we had an incredible moment tonight. The Avs captain, Gabriel Landeskog, who hasn't played in an NHL game since June of 2022, scored a goal tonight for the Avalanche. Just remarkable. Over about 1,037 days since he last played in the NHL. Actually, I mean, he played in Game 3, but so it's been 1,037 days, I think, between goals for Landeskog. The dedication of this player to get himself back, in the NHL, to play his first game in 3 years in Game 3 of the Stanley Cup playoffs. It's been a remarkable story for Colorado, who, coming into today, trailed this series 2-1. But Greg, the Dallas Stars only had the lead for 71 seconds. So it's been pretty crazy, but Colorado, dominated tonight, tied the series, and they now shift back to Dallas for game number 5.
Yep, absolutely. That was something that really stood out to me because I was just there like, wow, Landeskog just scored a goal. I have not heard that name in a very, very long time. So that was something that stood out to me as well. And how about if we do now turn it forward to Sunday, because we do have ourselves some really good series that are going down. This Jets versus Blues series, I feel like has been tremendous. Right now, Winnipeg is up 2-1 in the series. And right now, if you look at Winnipeg, they are the money line favorite in this one, right around about -130, -135, depending upon where you look. But I know that you're gauging a few player props in terms of this Jets versus Blues game, so lay out to me what you're all diving in on with regards to this game number 4.
Yeah, Robert Thomas of the Blues is one of the guys that I'll target. He had 3 points or 4 points, I think it was, in game number 3. He is the Blues' best player. He came in to the playoffs on a 12-game point streak. He had, I think it was 25 points in those 12 games, and so we're going to come back with him tomorrow to get at least 2 points at plus 215. I'm all about the plus money as much as I can, Greg. I'm really trying to find value in plays when I'm giving stuff out. The other one, on the Winnipeg side, their captain Adam Lowry, a guy who plays lower down in the lineup, not known for being a goal scorer, but something seems to happen to him when the playoffs come around. He's got 7 goals in the Jets' last 13 playoff games, and at plus $7 for him to score a goal, I can't pass that one up. So for now, those are 2 guys that I'm targeting at the moment. I've got to do a little more of a deep dive tomorrow and get a little more information and study a few things through the NHL media notes that I go through, and those don't come out until game day. But for now, the Robert Thomas prop and the Adam Lowry prop are 2 that are definitely on my bingo card for this game.
Absolutely. Sounds like you're liking a few goal scorers out there, and I do think that should be very much a fun one, as we've had a tremendous series thus far between these 2 teams, and I think that this one is going to be interesting, as the New Jersey Devils, they were able to pull it out late against the Carolina Hurricanes by a count of 3-2 just 48 hours ago. Now they go at it in Game 4 with the Devils trying to knot up the series. The Carolina Hurricanes, very much a sizable favorite in this one, north of -160 or so favorites with regards to this. How do you dive in on this Devils versus Hurricanes series? Because with the Devils, I know that they've dealt with a few ailments. They've dealt with guys being out really for the entirety of the season. But what has stood out to me is the fact that they've been able to give some pretty tremendous fight here throughout the series.
Yeah, they have. I think the way to target this is really just to play the under. It's been all 3 games have gone under the total. We're getting 5.5 in this one. You're paying a premium for it, about -130, -135. Shop around. You're going to get some serious juice no matter where you go. But I once again, for New Jersey, they're not going to be able to outscore Carolina, and not that Carolina is one of the higher scoring teams in the NHL, but New Jersey's got to keep this game to really what we like a 3-2 game at most. So I'll stick with the under 5.5. I think that's the best way to go from a player prop standpoint. I've really laid off on this one since the first game. I don't like to really target a lot of goals or assist props in a game where I'm not expecting a lot of goals to happen. So for now, for me, the best play in this game would be under 5.5 at about -130, -135.
I do like that look as Jonathan Davis. He is doing an absolutely tremendous job here at VSiN. Taking a look at this great game of hockey. Joining me right here on Cashing Out on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. And what else is tremendous? Being able to have access to your funds 24/7, 365 on leap years, 366 days of the year. And Edge Boost, they make sure that bettors, they're able to have those funds all the time, as all gambling transactions are approved. No usage fees, no minimums. You're able to earn cashback rewards as you utilize Edge Boost. And if you sign up today over at edgeboost.bet, utilize promo code of CASH, CASH. That gives you a $25 match on your first deposit of $25. That's over at edgeboost.bet. And I know that Jonathan, he's doing a great job of boosting us up right now. And how about if we do take a look at this fun series, as we've got ourselves the Canadiens and the Capitals. No love lost between these two teams in game number 3. So now we head on over to game number 4 with the Capitals currently in the lead by kind of 2-1. And this is a rather pick-em money line. In a lot of places, the Washington Capitals, very slim favorites. But how do you take a look at Caps versus Canadiens? As I know you're a man that you were a week ago donning your Canadian shirt when you were joining me on this, which always love to see that. And this has been thus far a very fun series.
It sure has, Greg. But the big, look, you alluded to the fact it got a little nasty in game number 3, and we had a fight that carried over into the benches between the second and third period on Friday night. Always, brought back the days of the Broad Street Bullies from the 70s and 80s for those older hockey fans. But the big storyline in the game on Friday night is both teams lost their starting goalies. So we're likely to see both backups play on Saturday or on Sunday here with the Canadiens and the Capitals. Now, I would expect if we get both backups, I'm looking at another high-scoring game like we saw in game number 3. One prop that I really like in this one, well, a couple of props I really like. Montreal's backup, Jakub Dobiš. He has had 15 starts this year for the Canadiens. In 13 of them, Greg, he's given up the first goal of the game. So I'm going to target Washington. They're probably split up a unit play or a half unit play. I'll target Washington to score a goal, the first goal of the first period. You can get that at plus money. And I'll also target Washington just to score the first goal of the game. And right now that's sitting at about a -120. So I think this way, I'm covered if they as long as they score the first goal of the game. And look, the percentages tell you that they will. So that's one prop. The other one is one that I targeted Friday and I gave out on Dave Ross's show and Jensen Lewis on Friday. Juraj Slafkovsky of the Montreal Canadiens. He has been a shot-making machine for Montreal. And we did a nice little ladder prop on Friday night. He ended up finishing with 5 shots on goal on Friday. And he's had at least 2 shots on goal in 21 of his last 29 games, 3 or more in 15 times. So I laddered him all the way. I laddered him up all the way. I did over 1.5. Right now, it is pretty pricey at -$2, but it's just been such a gift. And over 2.5 at plus 160. I will target that for a little smaller, a smaller unit. But those are the Slafkovsky ladder prop. I mean, he's had 14 shots on goal in the 3 games, 5, 5, and 4. So I could see even going back up to 3.5, over 3.5 at plus 425.
Absolutely. And Jonathan, we've got about 30 seconds left. Anything that you're going to be looking at in terms of Kings versus Oilers?
Okay, Kings versus Oilers, really quick. Over 6. The over has cashed 17 of the last 21 playoff games. Adrian Kempe, over 2.5 shots on goal and to score a goal. Both of those have hit in 13 of the last 14 games against the Oilers. Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, Zach Hyman, over 0.5 point. Just to get a point to 3 of them in a parlay, you can get that at plus 130.
And Jonathan Davis beats the buzzer because he does everything well here at VSiN. Jonathan, always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you so much.
Always a pleasure to be with you, Greg. Have a great rest of your night.
Jonathan Davis performing with no power whatsoever, but yet he brought the power here on VSiN. And coming up next, how about if we do give you guys a few previews for this Baseball Sunday right here on Cashing Out on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
out here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
We're back here on Cashing Out on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. It was great to talk some hockey with Jonathan Davis. He does a tremendous job here at the network, being able to gauge all that we've got out there on the ice. Now let's take a look at a little bit of what we're going to be getting out there on the diamond, as we've got all 30 teams in action on this Baseball Sunday. We've broken down a few games, and there's a few money line like pick'em games / money line underdogs that I'm really taking a liking to. So how about if we do dive in on this one first things first? We're going to go 969, 970 on the card. It is the Royals are playing us, the Houston Astros, as Hunter Brown is going to be going for the Astros, and old Chris with a K, Bubich, is on the bump for the Royals. So one of my favorite names out there, as you've got the Royals currently about a plus 115 to a plus 120 underdog, minus 127 to minus 142. That number on Houston with a total of 7.5. And you've got two pitchers that come in absolutely white hot into this one. Both of these guys have a sub 150 ERA. For Hunter Brown, he has given up 0 runs in his last 3 starts, totaling 19 innings. Chris with a K, Bubich, he has given up 2 runs or fewer in, I believe, every one of his starts thus far this season. And old Chris with K, Bubich, yes, I do like saying that name, north of 9 strikeouts per 9 innings. He's been rock solid there. He's been able to cut down on the walks. Spent last year in the bullpen. I don't know what it is, but I knew he was a first-round pick that it looked like he was going to be a flopperoonie coming out of Stanford. He has all of a sudden been able to find it, and now he has been able to deliver on that promise. Meanwhile, for Hunter Brown, he's got a sub 125 ERA. His walks numbers throughout his career could be a little bit shaky, but what I've always gathered from Hunter Brown is that he actually pitches significantly better when he's away from home rather than when he is at home, and I think that it's very fascinating to see if these guys are going to be able to continue what they've been able to supply thus far, because I do think that there's a little bit of regression to him for both of these guys. You're just not going to be able to continue to have this performance way that you have had. For Hunter Brown, again, 0 runs allowed in his last 19 innings. Chris with a K, Bubich, I believe, has allowed 2 runs in his last 3 starts. Both of these guys have been absolutely amazing this season, and for both of these offenses, it's been amazingly cold for them. As for the Houston Astros, they're scoring about 3.6 runs per game away from them, and the Royals are averaging 3 runs per game. The Royals are quite literally dead last in the big leagues in terms of runs per game, lower than the likes of the Chicago White Sox and company. But for the Royals, I think sooner rather than later it's going to come around. Now, I've been saying this for about a month or so, and the fact that the Royals are actually 14-14, I find that to be stunning. If you're scoring less than 3 runs per game, you should not be sniffing 500, but yet somehow, some way, the Royals are. And part of that is because they revamped the bullpen. They brought in Carlos Aceves as a nice closer for the team, and a little bit of a less than savory go of it on Tuesday, but all in all, he's been solid. Lucas Erceg, he's a nice 8th inning guy for the team. Even in something like an Anel Zerpa has had a little bit of a rough start to the season. I think that he's got some potential in this bullpen. But for the Kansas City Royals, you saw if guys are able to move the line for the team, as you've got Mark Canha, who comes off the injured list. He, in his small sample size, has been able to give you a 400 plus on base. Miguel Garcia, Bobby Witt Jr., they've been solid there. What's really been the issue for the Royals has been the deep ball. You had Vinny Pasquantino go yard on Saturday for his 3rd home run of the season. First guy on the team to reach 3 bombs. And for the Houston Astros, guy that's been bombing this year is Yordan Alvarez. Less than a 300 on base with 2 home runs, hitting at the Mendoza line of 200. Not going to get the job done there. Jose Altuve is starting to get a little bit washed. He's been selling about a 275, but not as much power out of him. Christian Walker has been a big waste of money at this point. He and Yunior Diaz below the Mendoza line of 200. This has been an Astros team that, as well, has been in the top 5 in terms of their bullpen ERA. It's been a rough year for Taylor Scott, but you've got the Braves, Brian King, Brian Abreu. Both of these guys have had a rock-solid start to the season. Josh Hader is looking like the Josh Hader of old, but I do think that there's going to be a little bit of positivity for both of these offenses. Kansas City is not necessarily like the hitter's haven that I think some people made it out to be last season, but it's still a relatively good park for hitting. I do think that both of these starters are going to start to experience just a little bit of regression, and I do think that the Royals find a way to get the job done against the Astros. We have seen it over the last few seasons, the Astros getting off to rough starts of the season. So I'm going to be one taking a shot on this over. So I told closer to an 8.2, and with the Royals, felt like they deserve to be a small favorite. I'm going to be taking a shot on them outright on the money line. What else you want to take a shot on is the sharp plays over at sharpplays.com. That's where bettors go to be able to get ahead. And if you're wanting to be able to get just betting information, not just noise, that's where you want to go, as the sharp plays, they're the source that so many people are echoing. Since 2011, they have been locked in on what the real pros are betting. They are elite groups. They are gauging all the sharp money, all the kinds of bets and the kinds of actions that actually moves lines. And when the sharp plays jumps on a sign, on a side, I should say, the line does react every single time. They've got powerful AI tools, so you're not just guessing, you're getting ahead. And when you sign up for their free reports, whether that be on the old Twitter/X, whether that be via email, you get yourself more informed as well. Visit sharpplays.com. Respected, watched, and feared. That is the Sharp Plays. As this is Cashing Out with myself, Greg Peterson, right here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. And how about if we do dive in on one of these games as a rather pick 'em, and I do think that there's going to be a little bit of regression in this game. This is 9:53, 9:54 on the card. We have the Milwaukee Brewers on the road against the St. Louis Cardinals, and old Eric Fetty is on the bump for the Cardinals, and Jose Quintana, he's going for the Brewers. And with the Brewers, in a lot of cases, they're between about even money to -105, between -105 to -115. That number is there on St. Louis, and total on this game, it is 8. And this is just a situation where I don't know how long Jose Quintana is going to be able to keep this up, because with Jose Quintana, it's been a really good start to the season from. He has won 18 and 2/3 innings across his 3 starts. He has allowed 2 runs. He's got a fielding independent of a 356, getting 4.3 strikeouts per 9 innings. Last year, he was pretty fortunate when he was with the New York Mets. The regression monster is hungry, and I think that he's going to have a snack of Jose Quintana on Sunday. Meanwhile, you've got a guy in Eric Fetty that he's got a 3.33 ERA, but again, that fielding independent is right around 5. You've got 2 guys that have identical 4.3 strikeout per 9 innings rates. You've got a guy in Eric Fetty that's giving out north of 4.5 walks per 9 innings, and it's a Brewers team that they themselves have done a pretty solid job finding a way on base, being able to move the line. As you've got for the Brewers, Sal Frelick along with Bryce Terang, both hitting above a 300. You've had Rhys Hoskins find a way to be able to get on as well. Christian Yelich is never going to be that same MVP guy that he was a few seasons ago, but he's still been able to give you a little bit of power. And Jackson Chourio, who is a part of the 2020 club at the age of 20 last season, he's been able to give the team 6 bombs. Really like what he's able to bring to the table. Meanwhile, for the St. Louis Cardinals, Nolan Arenado hits that big walk-off home run on Saturday. Have to like to see that, as he hasn't been able to hit for as much power this year, but doing a solid job moving the line. And some of these younger guys like a Victor Scott have been able to step up. I've always liked what I've seen out of Alec Burleson whenever he's been able to see some at-bats. I think that he's got a little bit of upside. Jordan Walker has been a little bit more teeter-totterish in terms of what he's been able to provide, but Brandon Donovan is doing a nice job of reaching base. And then you do have a pair of bullpens that are currently 25th or worse in terms of bullpen ERA thus far this season. Ryan Elsley blew a save for the St. Louis Cardinals on Saturday. For the Brewers, they actually led the National League in terms of bullpen ERA last season, and you got pretty much all those guys back. Yo Payams, Elvis Peguero, Jared Koenig, Trevor McGill, all these guys, but McGill gave up the game on Saturday, so that was a little bit less than savory. I do think that both of these bullpens are a little bit better than what they've shown, but that said, I do think that both Quintana and Fetty, they're both going to give up quite a few runs. I think that you're going to have quite a bit of bullpen use in this one. I do think that the Cardinals find a way to persevere, set them at a -117, so I do like the Cardinals on the money line. In terms of the total, seeing at an 8, I do like the total over as well, semi-total more around an 8.4, and then I think this one is fascinating out there at the Mile High City, as we got 9:55, 9:56 on the card. The Colorado Rockies play out to the Cincinnati Reds, and yes, Bill Belichick, we are on to Cincinnati as they're on to Nick Lodolo getting the start for them, and Ryan Feltner goes for the Rockies. Rockies are an underdog of between +130 to +135, and between -145 to -155 on the Reds. That total is 11, and if you're looking at the run line of the Reds, going to be finding that right around even money, -105. I'd be willing to go up to about a -114 here in terms of that Reds run line, but I also do like the under. For the Reds, keep in mind that their offensive numbers are badly warped this year. And the reason why is that 24-run outburst against the Baltimore Orioles that is making everything look just a little bit more heightened in terms of them. If you look at every game aside from that 24-run outburst, things have been relatively league average with them. They've been a solid offense, but they haven't necessarily been an amazing offense. You got Gavin Lux actually starting to move the line. He had been for the longest time, in my opinion, a little bit of a disappointment. So do like to see that. Elly De La Cruz, he certainly has the strikeout issues, but when he makes contact and he's able to get on base, he's able to be such a threat for this team. And for the Colorado Rockies, they've all of a sudden gotten Jordan Beck going. He's been able to give you 5 home runs this season, so you do like to see that. And for the Rockies, they obviously have some of the most demonstrative home and road splits that you're going to find in the league, as currently for the Colorado Rockies, when they're away from home, they're averaging 2 runs per game. That is not a typo. They're averaging 2 runs per game. Meanwhile, at home, it's more like 5.1 runs per contest. Their batting average when they're at home, it goes up by north of 60 points, as you've got a lot of these guys that they just can't hit away from home, being able to hit at home. And for the Rockies, the bullpen's been a little bit better with the likes of Jake Bird and company, but they did have to use up a lot of their more trustworthy bullpen pieces on Saturday, and Victor Vodnik is currently dealing with an injury. That was like the lone guy in the roster that provided some 4.4 ERA. And for the Cincinnati Reds, you've got a lot of guys that are solid in this bullpen. The likes of Brent Suter, Tony Santillan, Taylor Rogers, they've been able to do a nice job of being able to hold down the fort. So I do think that for Nick Lodolo, it's going to be setting up to be pretty clean for him. Strikeout numbers have been down, but he's been able to reduce on the walks. And for Ryan Feltner, he's not going to necessarily get to blow you away with regards to his strikeout stuff, but all in all, he's been done a nice job of being able to keep things out in front of him as well. So I do like this total under. I do like the Reds on the run line. And coming up next, we do have ourselves a great treat here on Cashing Out, as the one and only Mike Palm going to be joining me right here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.